All right, grasshoppers, she is back. We got rid of Jackie. No, we're just kidding. We're not getting rid of Jackie. She's still out for a couple weeks. Kathleen McIntosh, Kathleen McIntosh, hypnotherapy.com. Is that correct?
That's me.
Okay, good. And we can find you. Where's the best place to find you?
Just on Google. I have my web pages associated with my Google business profile. So if you just Google me, it'll pop up with everything you need to find me, my website and just some of the things I post up there.
We were just talking before the show, Kathleen. This is her second show, obviously last week at this time. But she claimed she was nervous, but she didn't seem to be nervous at all. She was fantastic. So you did a great job. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Well, nice to see you. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, it's a fun time. So I'm a little my laptop, given the IT expert that I am not, is not functioning properly. So I'm on my iPad today. So as long as Kathleen, you can see Kathleen, that's all that matters. We're just talking before the show how you and Jackie get along so well. You're totally different personalities, and you're so well aware that some client that may come to you may not be a mesh with you, and you'll just try to pass them off to Jackie, different personality. The reason I like that so much is, I think you really have to be a confident person, right? To say, okay, I know who I am, I know what I'm all about, and I'm not for everybody. I'm not going to try to be for everybody. I just got to be me, right? I think that's true.
Yeah, and I think it's really important when you're talking about therapy, because the number one thing for therapy that you have to have is rapport, and you have to mesh. And I think what's really important as clinical hypnotherapists, I think most of my colleagues do a free consult call. And that allows, and I personally do a video consult call so that we can get to know each other face to face, really, because that's how we do things now, right? Is on Zoom. So for me, it really allows me to build rapport with that client. And yes, I have had a client who contacted me. We had a conversation, and I could just see that we didn't see therapy the same way. And that's okay. So yes, I did refer her off to Jackie, and and if she went ahead with that, that's great. If she didn't, that's okay. Once I've referred, we don't talk about it anymore. But it is really important that you have rapport, and I'm not for everyone.
Right. So anyway, we're talking about hypnotherapy, but we talk a lot about mental health stuff too. So there's laws in like your practice, just like a doctor's or a psychiatrist, right? You can't really know what's going on with some other patient. Is that
okay? So we don't operate like doctor or psychologist. The great thing is, I just literally said this to a client yesterday. I said, well, the good thing is I'm not a psychologist, and I don't claim to be. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and that's what I work in. So when I'm working with a client, I'm looking at everything, how the mind works and where the triggers are. And if I can go in and help that client find that place and then light up those neural pathways and make the change. That's what hypnotherapy is. So I don't discuss clients other than with colleagues. So yeah, I still have ethics. Like we have therapy ethics, and we did study that. And so I do have that.
Right. So I try to do this all the time when Jackie comes on. Just briefly describe it. I know you touched on it there. Describe what hypnotherapy really is.
How many hours do you have? I just came back from a conference in Vegas. There was, I don't know, 100 and some odd speakers, and everybody has their own feeling about what it is and how the mind works. There's just so many theories out there. So for me, I believe that the subconscious is this big garden, and there's a lot of weeds in there from our childhood, from trauma, from emotional things that have happened in our life. And we just need a reprogram. And so by using hypnosis, it allows us to bypass what's called our critical faculty, which is our monkey mind, shall you say, when you're always ruminating on stuff. And it allows the conscious and the subconscious to have a better communication. So once we get into the subconscious, then we can say, okay, what are the limiting beliefs? And because we've knocked out this critical faculty, you're more likely to be able to go into the subconscious and see where the errors of your ways are, like what's causing us to do certain things. But you're the one doing all the work. I'm merely the guide. And I like to tell people, they thank me for doing this. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just helped you get to where the answers already are, because your subconscious knows everything. So then once we get there and we kind of eliminate, or I like to say reframe the issues that you're having into a more positive perspective where you can help, where it helps you to just deal with it better, then we do what's called suggestion therapy, where we create suggestions of what you want instead. And we did talk about this a little bit last time. And so to me, that's what hypnotherapy is. It's the ability to use a technique that's natural. We go into hypnosis numerous times throughout the day, and it's a natural technique. And we just reframe situations so that you can deal with them much more positively.
Right. So one of the things I've learned on the show is that not all the time, but pretty much all the time, any addiction problem stems back to some trauma in childhood for people, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Even if it's not childhood, it's trauma in general.
so
Mostly childhood.
why are we not able to access our own subconscious mind and do that ourselves? Is there something blocking us from doing that?
I don't know. I don't know why that occurs. I've never thought of it in that way, because I believe that you can, in a quiet state of meditation or with self-hypnosis, you can get to your subconscious. You just have to be able to find the space between the thoughts that run through our mind. And I believe that if you set an intention before meditation and you can quiet your mind enough that there's more space between thoughts, because I truly believe that's how I found hypnotherapy as well. And what really led me to believe, I started yoga, and I used that internal awareness of my body to create space in my conscious monkey mind that runs a mile a minute all day. And I was able to find space and just ask myself, is this what I'm meant to do? And everything around me started manifesting that this was what I was supposed to do. And I think people need to just tune into their intuition.
Yeah.
Tune in, quiet the outside world, take some quiet time, whether it's in nature, in meditation, in hypnosis, whatever that is for you, or some people it's art. Because I know I've got a colleague who does a lot of art therapy, Lou Cami. She's in New York as well. And she uses art therapy. So anything where you can singularly focus the mind, it allows the subconscious to speak to you.
Barry Shelley is a follower of ours. He's a veteran, good friend of ours, and he's a very intelligent man too. Tom doesn't have that much space left in his brain. He's always filled with knowledge. But intelligent, you're an intelligent man, Barry. I'll tell you that. You know, it's interesting listening to you talk. I start thinking about myself and this journey I've been on with True Good Life, and one of the things that I think I've improved on, and I feel so much better about. I don't mean this in a bad way. I don't think about what other people think of me anymore. Like if I want to do something, if I wanted, like I danced in front of 18,000 people at Madison Square Gardens a couple months ago. I would have never danced at a wedding before. Yeah. You know, going on Survivor was a great thing, you know, because nobody else was going to do that. So I said, I'm going on Survivor. You know, I went and got my truck driver's license when I was playing in the National Hockey League. Never drove a truck. I just want to always learn how to drive a truck. And I don't know where I've gotten that. I've gotten better now at saying, trying to think. So for example, so I go for a march in the morning. I call it a march because I try to get the most out of every stride, so it becomes a march. Now I've started taking pictures, and the pictures come out fantastic. But I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not trying to say that I'm some great artist or whatever. I follow my heart much more, and I say, oh, geez, that looks pretty interesting. You know, like the sun coming through the clouds and all this different kinds of stuff. And I'm doing videos and everything too, and I don't think about it too much. I just follow my heart much more now, and it seems to come out much better.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think just back to not being so concerned about what others think of you.
Yeah.
I wish everyone could have the confidence to feel that way.
Yeah.
Because that is an area I deal with confidence a lot. I just was working with a client yesterday, and confidence was one of the things she feels she's lacking. And so then you just resource state that, because if you really look at your life and you take note of the things that you've accomplished throughout your life and all the good things, unfortunately, it's human nature to focus on the negative.
Yeah.
That's just the way we're programmed. It's like the news. It's like everything. We're always, if there's something negative in the news, we're going to go see what we can find out about it. And if we could just really take stock of all the things we've accomplished, whether it's being a parent, the job, the career, just being a good person, just being a nice human being is an accomplishment these days. If you can be kind and compassionate. So I think people really, and that's what we do in hypnosis. We have to go to the subconscious, because sometimes people bury all those good things about themselves. So we have to go into the subconscious and say, okay, when they're in hypnosis, we'll say, all right, you want to be confident. Tell me a time when you felt really, really confident. And they can always come up with a time.
Right.
And then they describe the situation. So then we anchor that. We anchor it to this time when they're not feeling confident. We say, okay, now whenever you feel this, now all of a sudden you put these two fingers together and you're going to feel that. So we anchor that really good feeling. And then I just tell people, walk around, squeeze those fingers together all the time. Nobody knows what you're doing. And you will just automatically have this feeling of confidence.
That's cool. I like that. You know what the best things I ever did was write a book. I have a writer writing the book with me. But it really forced me to go back and look at good things, bad things, and really have a much more clear picture of who I was, how I became what I was, like any mistakes I made, how I felt after the mistake, what I did to recover from the mistake. And it's the same thing. I had a gentleman, a Ranger fan, a couple months ago. He said, Tom, I just want to be around you. See, your confidence is just unbelievable. And I was like, oh, I'm just like, I guess I'm much more out there now too. Like I'm not guarded as much as I was in the past. I talk about my feelings more. I use words like magical and passion and love and all this kind of stuff. I never would have spoken like that before. Those words weren't coming out of my mouth. And now I feel like, no, I'm going to say magical, because I'm going to have a magical world. And that's just the way it is, right? So
I want to say that is contagious.
Yeah.
People want to be around people who are happy.
Yeah.
They feed off that. And, you hear the saying that your life is like the 6 people you spend the most time with. So upgrade your friends or at least connect with people.
I've never heard that. So that's the theory, is that the 6 people you spend the most time with, that's how you are. That's your life.
Kind of that's the, so if you want to have a better life, start associating with people who are more like what you want to achieve. And it's not to say we have to get rid of old time friends. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you need to start spending more time with people who resonate with how you want to be and who you want to be. And it's all about that confidence thing again, or the people that bring light to your life. And I think that's one of the best things about being in this field, is that people are fascinating.
Yeah.
Hearing what different people have learned from different trainers, and people have neuroscience background. I don't know if you've ever followed the Huberman podcast.
No.
Oh my gosh, the man is amazing. And he's a neuroscientist, and listening to the science-backed things of all the things that we do, that's what I find fascinating, because I'm very science-based.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I do tend to see more now. Like I really believe that I've built myself more of a magical world, right? I don't, it's like, so I've learned that, I've always been into physical fitness, and I've learned how to eat better now and train better, train smarter. So that's for my body. And just like you're saying, I think I realized I want to strengthen my mind too, right? So I want to put good things in my mind. I want to be around good people. But you're right, though. There's a lot of negativity out there. It's hard to separate. Like if you got a really good friend that you've known for a long time, that is either maybe you just didn't notice how negative they were before, but they're certainly negative now. It's like, it's your friend. You don't want to just leave them, but at the same time. So what do you do then? I mean, if you got a friend like that.
What do you do then? I was as you were talking, I'm like, how would you deal with that? And one of the things that I was learning while I was away in Vegas this time was a little more conversational hypnosis, because you don't always have to be in a state of hypnosis to be able to make positive change.
Yeah.
So really loving people from a kind place and accepting them first off for who they are and not feeling like it's your job to change them.
Yeah.
But by always talking about things from your perspective, like instead of saying you need to do this or you should do this, say, you know, I had a friend, or, you know, when I was feeling that way, I did this. And it comes across very different than you need. And I had this conversation with a dear friend of mine a while ago. Well, it was a number of years ago before I started hypnotherapy. He says, I don't like it when you tell me I need to do something. I was like, you know what? You're right. And so I've become very aware of that. And it's not a bad thing to point things out to people, but do it in a storytelling way, even if you're making the story up.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you're making up the story about what you're trying to, people are much more responsive to that kind. Oh, really? They did that? And then they can kind of, and you're not saying, hey, you need to change this. You just tell them a story and they go, they don't even realize that they're thinking about how they can change their life now. One other thing I wanted to say on some of the, when you were talking about the love, the passion, I want you to know that the people that follow you and the fact that you're a hockey player or we're a hockey player, and in that athletic arena where men always feel like they have to be so, you know, it is really refreshing to hear a man of your stature and your background talking about love, passion, and magic.
I know.
And just think of how many people's lives you're changing by doing that.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing that when I started this years ago, I had no idea where all the True Grit Life was going to go. And I've had a number of people come up to me now and talk about how I've changed their lives, you know, or people who had been in a suicidal state or whatever, and they say it saved them. And you know, I really, again, I go back to, I've learned to just follow my heart. I really don't have a plan for things as much. And I feel like I just say yes to everything now. And yeah, and even if I love where I can't remember where I heard this, but it was like, say yes to everything, even if you don't know if you can do it or not. And even if you fail the first time you try it and everybody then says to you, Tom, you said you could do it. So, well, yeah, I'm going to do it. I just haven't done it yet. Right. That's the key.
I just haven't done it yet. Well, that's funny because when Jackie asked me if I'd fill in for her, I was like, oh, Jesus, what you want me to do? And I did. All that fear came up, and I just really had to look at the positives of the outcome of this, and just being able to share my perspective of hypnotherapy and mental health, and that passion for that part of what I do overtook the fear. Like I was feel the fear and do it anyway, as they say, right? And
you're like the duck on the pond then, because the little feet were paddling underneath, but up top you were calm. You were great last week.
That's what I said, and I was just like, when I said that to my first girlfriend, who I was like, oh my God, I was like so nervous, and she went and watched it and she messaged me back. She said, what are you talking about? I was like, okay, well, good. I'm glad that's how you thought about it.
Isn't that funny though that people think like that? And I've done that myself too. I try not to do it as much now. I just try to dive in now and do it. But yeah, I think that's, like you said before, it's kind of human nature, right? It's like, I can't do that. You know, I'm gonna panic.
Yes.
But obviously that's the thing. I think you can really train yourself to get out of that. Like, you know, when they came and asked me to dance in front of 18,000 people, like there was that brief, like maybe nanosecond or whatever, where it's like, oh my God, I would just say no, Tom. But I think, no, it's an adventure. I'm doing it. I don't care how I look.
Well, and here's the thing, anxiety. I have 4 questions I use when people get anxious about things. And it's like, okay, what are you worried about?
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario of that? What is the best case scenario?
Yeah.
And is there anything you can do about it right now? And if there is, go do it. And if there isn't, let it go. If it's something that's coming up 2 months down the road, you're wasting all this brain space right now on something that you have no control over, that you can't do anything about right at this moment. So just let it go. But really, when you bring that worst case scenario in first, what's the worst case scenario if I go dance on this stage?
Yeah.
I might look like an ass. Okay. I might not have any rhythm, right? Yeah. And what's the best case scenario? I'm going to have a shit ton of fun.
Yeah, totally. And that's, you know what I learned too, that's a great point by you, because a really nice young girl working for the Rangers filmed me when I was dancing. And her name's Taylor. I don't mind. She's a sweetheart of a girl. She just got started maybe a couple of years now. She's filming me. So we got done and I was jacked up. I was having so much fun up there. And she handed me my camera back and I said, man, I'm terrible as a dancer. She says, yeah, you are, but it doesn't matter. You were so into it. It was unbelievable. And I've learned that just if you don't go give it 100%, you reduce your chances of being successful. So if you are going to commit to something, go do it 100%. Put your heart into it. And if you crash and burn, you'll just get back up again. You're not gonna die from it.
You just got to be real.
Yeah.
We hear this word thrown out all the time, authenticity, and honestly, it's where and how people connect to you. Like you can't be one person. Your public persona can't be one thing, and then you're private doing something totally different. I tell people if they meet me, on the street, they meet me in the park. I was just down at Rib Fest. We had the big Rib Fest here, and I ran into a client on the street, and I was like, "Hey, I was with other people, so I didn't say where I knew her. I said, how are you? I gave her a big hug,
right.
Just as if it was like she would walked in my office. And
cool.
It's if people see you that way, then they know when they get into the room with you, you're the same.
Yeah,
right?
totally. And I like what you're saying there too. So I've learned that, there's some people that are kind of shy when you meet them, right? You may even know them and they're kind of the heads down, they give you the weak handshake or whatever. I just have found that when you come at them like with total confidence and just like greeting them like you're so happy to see them, just like you did with that person, they now go, okay, I guess it's okay. I can be loud like that too, right? Don't you think they're kind of waiting for how you're going to react to them, right? It's like, now once you do that, then they feel like, oh, this is pretty cool.
And I think that's part of, my confidence has always been in people because my parents owned a fishing resort. I was in customer service my whole life. And so having to talk to strangers is just something that comes naturally. I'll talk to somebody in the elevator. My kids, I embarrass my kids constantly because they're like, why do you always talk to people?
I know.
I'm like, well, if I see someone I know, I'm going to say hi. And yeah, I'm going to end up stopping and saying something for a few minutes. I'm not just going to blow by them. And when you're standing in an elevator, I find it more uncomfortable to not say something.
Yeah, totally.
Just get used to talking to people, and honestly, it just helps with confidence.
So where I go for my march in the morning is Todd's Point. Now, Greenwich is a great town, a lot of great people, but a very wealthy town. So there's some people, I guess a little snobby, maybe, or maybe they're just totally shy. So this trail, there's in the morning, especially when the weather's nice, a lot of people walking both directions and everything. So I'm the same way. If somebody's walking in the direction coming towards me, you're on the trail, it's just the two people there. How do you walk by and not say hello? It's a human being.
Say good morning. Hello.
Yeah. So
I'm the same way.
There's this one guy though that walks there every morning and he won't say hello. So I say hello to him every morning. He never responds. He just keeps his head down. So I think it's funny now that I see him coming. I just get fired up. I said, okay, I'm going to say hello to him again today. It's hilarious.
And I saw a meme about that. And it was actually the person had a headset in, but you couldn't see it. So, so finally, the person went and tapped them on the shoulder, and they're like, "I say hi to you every morning." They're like, "Oh,
that's
I don't hear you because I got my earbuds in." And it was like,
that's
funny.
And the person this guy, it's not a matter of the visual. It's not just a visual thing. This guy, like he puts his head down, and I get almost like right in front of him, almost. You're like, but it is funny though when you do see somebody. And you say hello to them for the first time, they respond, but then they're kind of like, "What?" Now, again, I'm walking around with no shirt on too, so maybe for other reason. And I've just come from the gym and everything, so but then once you see everybody every time, they're pretty funny. Yeah, it is funny. It is interesting talking about all this stuff with human nature. Why? And what I've learned from you and Jackie is that there's a reason why we are the way we are, right? There's that subconscious mind and things that have happened to you in the past. It isn't just some random thing, like you were just made a certain way. You were created because of the things that you've gone through in your life, right?
Absolutely. And for some people, because of those things, they have triggers, right? They have things that when someone talks in a certain tone of voice, or someone moves in a certain way, or they do a certain thing, or they make a person feels a certain way, it's like it's a reminder, and that sometimes they don't even know what it is. They just respond, and they don't know why they do that. And that's one of the things I hear all the time. When my boyfriend talks to me this way, or the tone of voice, and sometimes, and I don't know why. And then you get into the subconscious, and you do again a regression to that feeling. For me, the interesting thing was when I was at hypnotherapy school, I had a fear of the exam.
Well,
and I literally, in a state of hypnosis, when they were asking us, because it was supposed to be an easy hypnosis, just imagine yourself as a clinical hypnotherapist, and what's the number one thing you have to do? And I'm like, oh my God, I have to pass an exam. I haven't written an exam in probably 30 years. Jesus. And then I just all of a sudden had this like panic attack. So I actually did sessions outside of that classroom, and he took me back through regression to that feeling. You know, the two things that popped up
what?
was an incident when I was a kid at my parents' fishing resort where a bear came up behind me, and all of a sudden I was actually looking after some customers' puppies while they were out on the boat, and I was like 8 or 9, somewhere in there. And all of a sudden I heard this big noise behind me, and I turned around, and there's literally a bear on the picnic table, and it's just flipped open the cooler, and I went like an crazy woman down to my parents' cabin, because it was quite a ways away. And I literally, I was screaming the whole way, and I hit the wall. I didn't even make the door. My mom comes out. She says, "What are you doing?" I was like, "There's a bear." Anyway, my mom went and shooed it away, because that's who she is as a person.
Yeah.
And the other time was I was in a bank robbery. And
were?
Yeah, I was actually at the ATM.
Yeah.
It was on Granville Street. It was on New Year's Eve, and I'm standing at the bank machine, got my card in there, my purse sitting there, and I had this weird feeling walk behind me. So I looked towards the door, and all of a sudden, as I'm looking at the door, I hear over here, "Everybody hit the floor." And my instincts just said, leave everything and walk out the door. And there was a restaurant right next door, so I went over there and told them to call the police, because the bank was being held up. They didn't catch them. But the panic in that. So, and I'm thinking to myself, after I come out of hypnosis, I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you telling me that the thing I'm feeling inside of me about taking a test is equivalent to those two things? And it was.
But how does that make you nervous about taking a test because of the bear?
It's not that. It's that feeling that's very similar. So then you look at it and you go, because you're almost beating yourself up about this feeling. But when you go back and you look at, when have I experienced this feeling before? It's been in pretty serious situations.
Right.
And so this is how screwed up the mind is. That's where it took me.
Wow.
And it's like, are you telling me that I'm just as afraid of doing this test as I was those 2 times? And that was kind of shocking. And he's like, so let's diminish the anxiety about those 2 things, and it will just generalize over to this. And as it turned out, I clearly aced my test, because I'm here today as a clinical hypnotherapist.
That's fascinating. Okay, so why do I have the feeling when I'm driving over a bridge that I'm going to drive over the side of the bridge, that I'm going to lose control of the car and drive off the bridge?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you another story. I had a client who had a fear of going over bridges and driving. And what had happened when I actually got her into the feeling, it wasn't the bridge at all. What it was when you drive, you're actually in a state of hypnosis, just so you know, because everything you're doing about the driving is subconscious. If you think back to when you learned how to drive compared to that incident, what you do when you're driving is you think a lot. You're thinking about your day. You're thinking about what you need to do when you get home. You're thinking about whatever happened at work when you were there. You've got all these thoughts. And for this particular client, she had a lot of personal stuff going on. And it just so happened she was driving across a bridge when all of a sudden her life just kind of blew up, and she had to barely get off the bridge and pull the car over. So then all of a sudden she contacts me a couple of years later for fear of driving. But when we went back, it wasn't the driving at all. It was what she was going through at that time in her life. So then we went and, did some work around that. And then she contacted me later and says, you know what? I went to Victoria. I was driving around Victoria. And I'm like, fabulous.
Wow. Because I have to, if it's like a 3 lanes on each side bridge, I have to get over. Well, I'm trying to force myself to stay on the outside. But I tell you, it is a struggle. Like I have to, like a lot of the bridges around here are a couple miles long and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to, I have to really get into the deep breathing and everything, like, and force myself to stay. I'm getting out of my comfort zone clearly, because I'd rather stay in that middle lane, but I'm forcing myself to stay. But it's like, seriously, and I'm fine when, like, there's a big wall, but I have this feeling like, okay, the worst case scenario is going to happen. I'm going to hit somebody else or whatever, and my car's going to jump up over this small wall. If it's a big wall that's solid that I can't see, like I can be up in an airplane in the worst turbulence ever. Doesn't bother me a bit as long as I'm all feel like I'm all
Yeah,
covered up.
something about the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you did some hypnotherapy, Tom,
Okay.
your therapist might be able to guide you to why that is coming up for you. And it could be it could be the claustrophobicness of being on the bridge. It could be sometime when you were driving with a parent way back when,
Wow.
where there was something that happened on a bridge when you were on it. I don't know. Like, I mean, there
Right.
could be a gazillion reasons why you feel that way.
Right.
But in hypnosis, your subconscious would probably
See,
give
that's
you
a fascinating thing. Like, so that's what I really think is fascinating about this whole process is that, so you're going into it as the therapist and you don't know the answer. You push me to find the answer and then now work off that. Is that?
Yeah, I just guide the client to find out, go back to when you felt this. And the great thing is you don't have to look at every time you've driven across a bridge and felt this. You just have to find one.
Right.
One that's going to feel pretty intense for you. And then this is one of the most powerful things I learned in Vegas is that's the most important part of any part of the hypnotherapy is finding that thing that really lights up the neural pathway for that event. Once you've got that neural pathway lit up, that's when you can make change. If you can't get the strong enough response, then you need to go to another event where this has come up, where the intensity of it is, say, between like a 7 and a 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you can get the intensity and you can see the body settle into that, and that's what we look for, a lot of body language. One of the things that we were doing in Vegas was a guy was having some issues with a parent, and as soon as he clenched his hands and you could see it, the minute he was talking about it, and she's like, okay, stop, there it is. And the neural pathway is now lit up. And once it's lit up, it's good for a while. You don't have to jump in right on that second, but now you can start the work because now you know where the actual issue is.
Wow. That's interesting.
And cool. Jackie will tell you this too. What people come to us for is not what they come to us for.
Really?
They tell us it's one thing, but it is almost always something different.
Do they know it's something different?
They do not know it's something different.
Okay. Oh, okay. Like
not
you said,
usually. Not usually until they start talking.
So there's an issue about being afraid of heights, but maybe the heights have nothing to do with it, like you said. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and there are some, when it's a fear of like spiders, heights, it could be just a fear, and it might be from whatever reason that occurred. But when it's a behavior,
it's like you taking the
like that's associated with something.
It's like you being nervous about taking the test. It wasn't anything to do with the test. There was those other two incidents in your life.
Well, it might be, and it might also be there was also this internal thing about my dad, because my dad was a school principal.
Oh.
And I never struggled in school. I had four brothers. So needless to say, I was the one expected to move on through school, and the brothers weren't necessarily expected to. However, I had a brother that worked for TELUS for his whole life, and another brother that's in air conditioning. I've got a brother that's a pilot. He's actually a firefighter pilot in Canada for Conair. Oh. And my other brother's in oil, and he works in Israel. So, we all did very well. Huh. My one brother that's a pilot and myself are the only ones that actually went to any kind of post-secondary school.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, great to have you on again. It's just turned into a very educational.
Is our time up? I didn't even look at the clock today. You're so fascinating. I love talking to you.
You too. This whole subject is just fascinating to me, and I think a lot of our listeners will really learn a lot from it. I know you had a lot of comments passed on to you, and I do it all the time. We have some other funny shows where we're joking around. I don't think there's too much educational content in that stuff, or bad education.
Hey man, it's always good to laugh.
Yeah, well, we got into the Thursday show at 2:00. If you get a chance to watch it, it's pretty funny. We'll do things like we get into talking about farting, like and I might egg it on a little bit too. Like what actress would we like to see fart, or what person would we like to see fart? That's the kind of stuff we get into. So you're not missing much. It can be pretty funny.
Hey, anytime you can make people laugh, it's a good thing because that sends a lot of those good chemicals through the body. So
Definitely. Well, again,
All
you're
right.
fantastic. Again, thank you very much for having me on.
Okay.
We'll
And I
see
guess
you again
we'll
next
see
week.
you next week.
Yep, definitely. Good job.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.